Hello everybody, it's tractor time with Mr. Mick, and we're in Clarion, Iowa today, and we're right outside the Heartland Museum. And I have a book here to read to you called The Rusty, Trusty Tractor, and this is what was sitting here. It looks to me like it may be a rusty, trusty tractor. I believe, I could be wrong, I believe maybe it's the chassis of a 1020 McCormick tractor, but it says here, this is the Iron Mule original self-contained dump tractor made by Hughes Keening Company of Mansfield, Ohio. So there's our rusty trusty tractor for today. And here's an awfully good book called The Rusty Trusty Tractor. When Mr. Hill saw Grandpappy's tractor, he laughed right to his britches. "Ho ho!" he cried, slapping his knees. "You call that a tractor?" Michael looked up at Grandpappy to see what he was thinking, but Grandpappy was not letting on anything. Mr. Hill ding-donged with his knuckles on the rusty old engine cover and the spaghetti can that hung over the exhaust pipe, and he kicked the old cracked tires. "This won't last another season. Do yourself a favor, come on down to Hill's Tractor and get yourself a new machine." So there's Mr. Hill trying to sell him a new tractor. Michael leaned against Grandpappy's leg, but Grandpappy just scratched his neck and says, "I don't know, Mr. Hill. Me and this trusty old tractor have been together for 50 years, ever since my old plow horse died. We know each other real good, and I'm not hankering to go get a shiny new tractor." "Well, there's no harm in looking," said Mr. Hill. Micah tugged a handful of Grandpappy's overalls and said, "Please, please." He wanted to go look at a new tractor. Grandpappy looked down and smiled. "Well, now, maybe just a peek wouldn't hurt too much." "You won't regret it, sir," said Mr. Hill. Hill's tractor sales covered a half a block. Micah had never seen so many tractors in one place in his life. There were big ones and small ones and red ones and yellow ones, and some were with plows, and some had buckets, and some had forks, and some had diggers. Mr. Hill showed Grandpappy a big red tractor with a cab like a truck. "Got carpet in there," said Mr. Hill. "Got heating and air conditioning." "Well, mine's got air conditioning too," said Grandpappy. "When the air gets too fresh, I put on another jacket." "Look," said Mr. Hill, "stereo music." "I whistle," said Grandpappy. So there's all the different kind of tractors at Hill's Implement Store. Hill's Tractor Sales. Mr. Hill showed them the big fancy-dancy engine, but Grandpappy was not interested. "When my old tractor won't work, I fix it myself with a bit of wire. None of this electronic fiddle-faddle." Mr. Hill was not real pleased when Grandpappy did not want one of his new shiny tractors, but Mr. Hill was not the kind of man to give up easily. "How much grass you reckon on sowing this spring for hay?" he asked. "Oh, about 20 acres, said Grandpappy. "Well, sir, I know that you're not a betting man, but I'll give you a jelly donut for every acre if your tractor gets through this season." "And if it doesn't?" "It will," said Grandpappy. "Yes, but if it doesn't," said Mr. Hill, "you'll come back to Hill's Tractor Sales. That's all I ask." Come early spring, when they were setting up for plowing, Micah said, "You know, Grandpappy, this old tractor is sure hard to start." "Like me," said Grandpappy. "I'm hard to start when I'm cold and damp too." "It sure is rusty," said Micah. "I know how it feels. My knees got so much rust some days I need an oil can just to get out of bed." Then Grandpappy looked at Micah. "Boy, are you trying to sweet-talk me into buying a new tractor?" Micah quickly shook his head. "Good, because this old friend of mine and friends, this is an old friend of mine, and friends don't let each other down. You just remember that." So there's Grandpappy on his tractor with a couple cows out in front. The ground was still cold when Grandpappy plowed those 20 acres. The tractor crawled along, chug, 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 like an old fishing boat. Brown waves of earth curling up behind the plow. Seagulls followed, looking for bugs and worms. There he is plowing with his old rusty tractor. Plowing took most of 3 days. When Grandpappy finished the field was a strong brown sea of waves that were as straight as ruler lines. Grandpappy stuffed the sack with straw because the seat cushion was getting worn out. "We got a long way to go yet," he said. The lumpy earth was smoothed out, and the steel blades of the harrows cut it up nicely, ready for sowing the seed. Then Micah helped Grandpappy with the seed drill. The grass seed went in the small hopper, and fertilizer went in the big one. Chug, chug, chug. Micah hung on the fence and watched as the old rusty tractor pulled the seed drill around and around. Grass seed and grass food was dropped into the furrows. Now it's up to Mother Earth. And there's a picture of Grandpappy seeding with the old rusty trusty tractor. The sun shone warm and spring rains fell and green leaves sprouted on the popple trees. "Grandpappy, Grandpappy, come and see." And sure enough, the field was showing signs of new grass, as fine and soft as a baby's hair. The rest of spring came with a gallop. There were tadpoles and birds' nests in the barn, and grass in the field grew tall and thick. Roses bloomed and strawberries ripened. Grandpappy dug his first crop of new potatoes. Now the grass was as high as the bib on Micah's overalls. There's Micah standing in the tall grass. Mr. Hill paid a visit. "Good hay crop," he said, "but I can tell you plain and simple, there's no way this tractor is going to tow a hay baler. It just doesn't have the horsepower. Now it's time to think about that new model. What do you say?" Grandpappy gave a slow, soft smile. "I say I'm mighty partial to those jelly donuts." The first run of fine weather, Grandpappy sharpened the blades of the old mower, and Micah helped him bolt the mower onto the tractor. Chug, chug, chug. As the tractor went by, the tall grass fell and lay flat on the ground. There's Grandpappy mowing the field. In a couple days, Grandpappy will turn the hay with the rake to make it dry. The morning Grandpappy got out the baler, the weather forecast changed. "Thunderstorms tomorrow," Grandpappy says. "Wet hay is a good-for-nothing hay. We've got to get ourselves cracking." "Well, what if the tractor breaks down?" said Micah. Grandpappy shrugged. "Then we lose 20 acres of hay and 20 jelly donuts. Worse things have happened, but I tell you, boy, real friends are there when you need them. And my old tractor, it won't break down." There's the baler getting ready to go. Mr. Hill was part ways right. The tractor was not really big enough for the baler, but Grandpappy, he talked to it like it was his favorite horse. He called it Old Partner and whistled songs to it, and the rusty trusty tractor shuddered across the field, dragging the big baling machine behind. The sweet-smelling grass got scooped up and rolled and tied and spat out again, with bales weighing at least 500 pounds. Rolls fell down with a thump that shook the earth under Micah's feet. The storm broke that evening, and rain came down out of the sky like water running from a fire hose. But every bit of hay was wrapped in those bales snug and dry. Micah and Grandpappy were in the kitchen cooking some corn chowder when the screen door rattled, and they found Mr. Hill on the porch, as wet as a new-caught catfish. But he was carrying a box of jelly donuts. "I hereby declare you're the winner," said Mr. Hill to Grandpappy. "Though I don't know how you did it with that antique bucket of rust. A wang-a-dang, sir, you got more good luck than a hound dog in a butcher shop." So there's Mr. Hill coming to visit with his jelly donuts. Mr. Hill said good night and went off into the rain. But before Grandpappy and Micah had gotten to taste the first donuts, that tractor man was back on the porch, wetter than a catfish, his feet dirty up to his knees. He wiped the water out of his face. "Excuse me, it seems I have a problem with my car," he said. "I got stuck in the mud." Micah looked at Grandpappy and then waited. Grandpappy was real polite. "No problem, Mr. Hill. Me and my grandson got an old tractor here that will get you out in no time at all." So there's the tractor in the barn, and Mr. Hill standing in the rain. And would you believe it? As cold and damp as it was, the old rusty Trusty tractor started up on the first try. And they got Mr. Hill all pulled out. So Grandpappy sure loved his old rusty Trusty tractor, and I'm standing by this old rusty Trusty McCormick Deering iron mule in Clarion, Iowa at the Heartland Museum. That's all for now from Tractor Time.